This is item number 6.
Item 6, AB 323 by Assemblymember Olson. The motion is due pass with consent recommendation. Senators Wieckowski.
Aye.
Wieckowski, aye. Gaines. Bates.
Aye.
Bates, aye. Hill.
Aye.
Hill, aye. Jackson.
Aye.
Jackson, aye. Leno.
Aye.
Leno, aye. Pavley. Pavley, aye. 16.
All right, that matters, or we'll keep the roll open for those absent members. They can come in. Assemblymember Alejo, welcome to the Senate Committee on Environmental Quality, and I'd like to commend your committee and your committee staff for the quinella of legislation that we have to address the issues that some of the issues that we heard today on the Department of Toxic Substance. And please begin with the first bill, 273.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members, and thank you for setting me up very nicely with the update on the DTSC audit that we requested last year, and certainly share many of the sentiments and concerns that were just expressed a few minutes ago by members of this committee. So we're doing the follow-up now, making sure that we don't want an audit to be done and sit on a shelf and collect dust. We'd like to put that good information to good use, and so I think in total we have 5 bills trying to address some of the recommendations from the audit, but 4 of them are before this committee for this hearing. So I'll start with AB 273 by the ESTM committee, which will increase the interest rate charged on bill but unpaid invoices owed to DTSC to improve the timeliness of the collections from responsible parties. The current interest rate is so low, as you all pointed earlier, that the auditor believes that there's little incentive for responsible parties to make payments on time. The auditor recommended that in order to improve the DTSC's efforts to promptly recover its costs, the legislature should revise state law to allow DTSC to use a higher interest rate assessed on late payments. The bill would require a monetary obligation owed to DTSC to accrue a flat 10% interest or 7% interest for local governments. I respectfully ask for an aye vote on this bill.
We have support. Anybody here in favor of AB 273? Please come forward.
Bill Alio for the Environmental Working Group in support. Thank you.
Thanks.
Eddie Moreno on behalf of Sierra Club California in support.
Andrea Ventura with Clean Water Action in support.
Thank you very much. Opposition to AB 273? No opposition. All right, let's close the public hearing. Questions of the author by members of the committee? Seems pretty straightforward. We're not in the business of second guessing your committee's calculations and bill on what would be appropriate interest rate level at here. So there's a motion by Senator Hill. Please call the roll.
Item 1, AB 273 by Committee on ESTM. The motion is due pass to Committee on Appropriations. Senators Wieckowski.
Aye.
Wieckowski, aye. Gaines. Bates. Hill.
Aye.
Hill, aye. Jackson.
Aye.
Jackson, aye. Leno.
Aye.
Leno, aye. Pavley.
Aye.
Pavley, aye. 5-0.
We'll keep that matter on call for the absent members. Let's go to item number 2, AB 274.
Thank you, members, for your support in the previous bill. AB 274 now will clarify that DTSC can prioritize its cost recovery efforts by allowing bills accrued during a finite period of time to lapse and write off those costs as uncollectible. DTSC's cost to do due diligence and identify a responsible party for those projects often cost more than $7,800, resulting in a financial loss to the department to pursue. Authorizing DTSC to cut its losses on low-dollar uncollected projects valued at less than $5,000 accrued during the finite time will enable DTSC to more expeditiously cut through the backlog of outstanding costs and free up resources to just larger, higher priority cleanup costs. This bill has no opposition. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Very good. Members, anybody here in support of AB 274? Please come forward.
Bill Alio for the Environmental Working Group in support. Thank you.
Eddie Moreno with Sierra Club California in support.
May I inquire, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything, amendments?
No, I was going to get to that.
Oh, okay, very
Yeah.
good, thank you. I
It was
thought I
in
might have
the
missed it.
analysis.
Yes.
But let's go to opposition to AB 276 and then bring it back to committee. This is on page 2 of 3 at the bottom. Seeing no opposition to AB 274, on the comments by the committee, we have a one-time fix amendment. As noted above, this legislation applies to outstanding bills and costs accrued prior to December 31st, 2013. They're pursuing a new audit, and I guess the suggestion is have a sunset on the legislation, just so that when we get to 2020, they may not have fixed the problem, I guess, is the question.
We'll accept that as an author's amendment, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, so now we have to pick a date.
Yes, and it might be valuable to ask the director when they think that when they'd be able to clear the books of the 5,000 or less of those cases.
Director Lee, can I ask you to come up here on AB 274? I guess the inquiry with the chairman of ESTM's indulgence, when do we think that the backlog of these small claims would be completed? You've done quite a good job now with the itty-bitty little ones.
I don't have that in front of me, but if you want to hold this for a moment, I can see if I can get that for you in the next couple of minutes.
Now, the recommendation is this goes to the floor, right? Or is this,
So it'll go to appropriation.
okay, it's appropriations.
So they could take it in appropriation.
Let's hear from Ms. Hardy, the money person.
I think that we believe that it could take another year if we have the current resources to go through, because it would be an additional 564 sites, 65.
Okay, so if the computer system is in July 2016, let's just say it's late, but let's just say this, and then 2017, the system, everything should get through, so January 1, 2019, does that seem to be enough time to, we'll have oversight, but everything should be cleared out? Is that
Yes.
It's acceptable to me, Mr. Chair.
okay?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could, I think that's an appropriate amount of time, and with the new system, and certainly with the ability to gather greater financial information on those responsible parties, it may be easier to get that 5,000 or less in the future. So I think that we're giving them a great deal of authority that could improve that situation tremendously. So I think that's a good time frame.
And it probably goes without saying, but if that does not hold up, please let us know. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments by members of the committee?
Just to
Okay.
clarify, this merely authorizes.
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Chair.
Just wanted to make that
We'll still
clear.
have the ability to pursue it if they want to do that, yeah.
That's right. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Senator Leonard, was that a motion to approve? Okay. Please call the roll.
Item 2AB 274 by Committee on ESTM. The motion is due pass as amended to Committee on Appropriations. Senators Wykowski?
Aye.
Wykowski, aye. Gaines? Bates? Bates, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Jackson? Jackson, aye. Leno? Leno, aye. Pavley?
We'll keep that matters approved, but we'll keep it open. Let's move to item number 3. This is AB 275.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill will revise the state's, does two things. First revises the state statute of limitations to match the federal statute of limitations to give the state more time to recover cleanup cost. And second, it removes a reference to DTSC's general fund to prevent taxpayer dollars from unnecessarily subsidizing toxic waste cleanup. A bedrock principle of environmental law and regulations is that pollution costs should be borne by its creators, but under current state law, there's a specific liability for taxpayer dollars to partially fund cleanup due to the provision that requires the state's toxics account to pay off any judgment in excess of what a responsible party can afford to pay. That means taxpayer dollars are covering the cost of a cleanup where the responsible parties, the polluters, should be paying. AB 275 removes the reference to the state account so that the state is not liable for footing the bill when polluters should be paying the cleanup. This bill will provide DTSC more flexibility to pursue cost recovery cases in state court without putting taxpayer dollars on the line to cover cleanup costs. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
And just so members are alerted, there was an amendment to our staff report that came in on of what the bill would do, and it's added at the top of page 2 that we delete the within 6 years of the initiation of a removal or remedial process action to just clearly state it requires that if an operation and maintenance is required as part of the corrective action, that the cost recovery action shall be commenced by the department within 3 years of the certification of that operation and maintenance. So we're all clear. Members or anybody in support of AB 275 that'd like to be heard?
Phil Alio, Environmental Working Group, in support.
Eddie Moreno on behalf of Sierra Club California in support.
Andrea Ventura with Clean Water Action in support.
Okay. Others, those opposed to AB 275? Seeing none, Senator Jackson.
Yes, just a couple thoughts. One is that I understand the need to make the statute of limitations equal. I always hesitate to defer to the federal laws when they are weaker than the state laws. But in this case, I understand, and I'm going to support that. Just as a caveat, I don't think we should, to me, that's kind of going backwards and forwards. But in this case, I understand the importance of that. Cool. My other question is that if we're going to take away the taxpayer's responsibility for cleaning up a toxic waste site, and I know you have a few in your district and I have a few in mine. What do we do in the instance where the polluter doesn't pay? Instances where they declare bankruptcy and they leave town. Who's going to be on the hook for that? And in the case I'm thinking of in my district, it's the people of the local community who are now stuck with the costs of this cleanup. So I'm just wondering how we're going to address that problem if we take away the taxpayer. And I certainly understand, but, you know, are we going to, there are some of these bad actors who find ways to avoid their responsibility, including, you know, bankrupting their responsibility.
Mr. Alejo, if you'd like to address that, I'd like to have Director Lee come up also.
Right, maybe DTSC could help us answer that, but certainly in these cases that do actually get litigated and go to court, certainly it's the courts are able to apportion liability based on the responsible parties, but we also, the state does also continue to have its orphan account that's also helped to assist in those types of situations.
And we also know that the orphan account is going to get a new friend with the federal Superfund account that is well, I'll let the director and her staff testify.
Mr. Chairman, committee, I appreciate the opportunity. I have with me Amelia Glickman. She's counsel with counsel in at DTSC, and she is prepared to respond to the questions.
Push the button, right?
All right, thank you very much. Good morning. This legislation, it wouldn't necessarily preclude the department from using orphan funds to clean up a site, but what typically happens in a cost recovery action that's filed after a site gets cleaned up, for instance, in federal court, if we actually sue the responsible parties, the court actually has the power to apportion those costs among responsible parties. So if there are orphan shares due to somebody not having the ability to pay those costs, or for instance, they filed bankruptcy, the court could actually, using equitable factors, apportion that percentage-wise among the people who are actually still kind of standing in that litigation. And that's something, and the state law kind of follows that and actually statutorily embodies that allocation and apportionment principle and allows potentially for the possibility of actually having those orphan shares allocated to other responsible parties in accordance with percentages determined by a court.
What happens if the court, the federal court, has sliced up the pie, so to speak, and then the person files bankruptcy, or it's a subsequent action? They're responsible for this, but the action comes later. Are you able to go back and reapportion it, or is that a cost that's going to be absorbed by the state typically?
That's a great question, and I think that would be potentially fact-specific. If a party did later file for bankruptcy, of course, the department would have the ability to file a claim in the bankruptcy proceeding, often resulting really kind of in pennies on the dollar in terms of our recovery. In order to see about maybe reapportioning those costs, of course, we would probably have to go back to the court to file some sort of motion for that. The likelihood of disturbing already finalized settlements and things like that is probably pretty slim. So there is the possibility that orphan funds would have to be utilized in those circumstances if there was cleanup that remained to be conducted.
And while we have you here, the staff report indicates that there's about $9.2 million in or allocated roughly for orphan funds. And we think that the Superfund may be equal to that. It may be larger.
I can't speak in a great detail about that, but I understand that there will be a point in time coming up shortly where our federal obligations are going to exceed the amount in our state orphan fund. DTSC is required to do a 10% match for remedies on contaminated sites and eventually take over 100% of the operation and maintenance. And of course, these Superfund sites, they tend to be incredibly large and costly.
Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to provide the committee with more information about this. It is, as you are aware, a significant issue that's facing us in the coming years. There are a number of Superfund sites where we have provided our 10% share for the construction of the remedy. When EPA selects the remedy that will be constructed at these sites, their fiduciary responsibility is to ensure that the federal Superfund pays for cleanup at as many sites as possible. So they have an incentive to select remedies that cost less to build up front. Frequently, those remedies cost more to operate over time. And when the obligation for paying for the remedy shifts from EPA to the states at the point when the construction is complete and the operation and maintenance period begins, that's when the large costs come to us. When you look at the history of the federal Superfund program, we're now getting into the time period where those remedies have been selected and built, and they're now transitioning into operation and maintenance. So those costs are coming to us. The costs are in the tens of millions of dollars in the coming years, and we expect that they will grow, and they also, in some cases, will continue on, not just for a few years, but for many, many years, and in a couple of cases in perpetuity, because these remedies have to be operated indefinitely in order to maintain the protection for the public.
That will be tomorrow's problem. Well, it's coming. We have AB 275 for today's problem. I don't see any other questions. Thank you. I keep forgetting this. Would you like to close? I mean,
Enough good comments to close on my bill, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. No close.
Okay. There's a motion by Senator Leno. Please call the roll.
Item 3, AB 275 by Committee on ESTM. The motion is due pass to Committee on Appropriations. Senators Wajkowski.
Aye.
Wajkowski, aye. Gaines. Bates. Aye. Bates, aye. Hill. Aye. Hill, aye. Jackson. Aye. Jackson, aye. Leno. Aye. Leno, aye. Pavley. Aye. Pavley, aye. 6-0.
All right. We'll keep that open for absent members. Let's go to your final bill, 276.
Yeah, last bill, members, it's AB 276, which will grant new authority to DTSC that matches existing authority the U.S. EPA has to request financial information from parties potentially responsible for toxic waste cleanup. Under existing state law, DTSC can ask for information related to hazardous materials and waste, but it cannot request information about a party's finances, which could demonstrate the party's ability to pay cleanup costs. Having authority to ask for financial information will allow DTSC to identify those parties genuinely who lack the ability to pay for cleanup and obviate the need for DTSC to first sue to obtain the financial information. Aligning state law with federal law will help expedite the cost recovery process and save the state costs otherwise being expended on unnecessary litigation. This bill has no opposition and respectfully ask for an aye vote.
This would certainly seem like aligning federal or state law with federal law is a step in the right direction.
Exactly.
So it's
Like the last one.
it's a good thing. Members in support of AB 276.
Bill Alio with Environmental Working Group in support. Also, I'm here to represent California Legal Conservation voters on this bill and the prior three, also in support. One quick word was we thank the committee of ESTM for bringing these bills forward and the chair, Mr. Alejo, and also the chair and the committee for holding oversight hearing this morning. This agency doesn't have the high profile of a CARB or a Coastal Commission or now Dogger, we all know that, but it's a very important agency to the state of California and the members of the public, and we're glad to see the attention that the legislature is giving it, and we hope that the new director is able to, through new management and the initiative she's talked about, clean it up and really make it a better agency. Thank you.
None taken. Yes.
Eddie Moreno on behalf of Sierra Club California in support.
Good morning, Victoria Rome with Natural Resources Defense Council in support and in support of the previous bills as well. Thank you.
And Andrea Ventura with Clean Water Action in support.
Thank you. Opposition to AB 276. Seeing none, let's bring it back to the committee. Questions of the author? There's a motion by Senator Pavley. You may close. Okay.
Respectfully, ask for your support and thank you for all the support on all the previous bills. Thank you.
Oh.
The Assembly Committee for bringing all these forward.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, let's call the roll.
Item 4, AB 276 by Committee on ESTM. The motion is due pass to Committee on Appropriations. Senators Wajkowski.
Aye.
Wajkowski, aye. Gaines. Bates.
Aye.
Bates, aye. Hill.
Aye.
Hill, aye. Jackson.
Aye.
Jackson, aye. Leno.
Aye.
Leno, aye. Pavley.
Aye.
Pavley, aye.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to go get a cup of tea. We're going to wait for a member of the Assembly who'd like to have their bill heard. And once again, like to thank the committee and Chairman Alejo and the department for being here for our oversight hearing. We're waiting for a member. Okay, we'll reconvene the Senate Environmental Quality Committee is Assemblymember Perea. Good morning. Welcome to the other side.
I've
You-
seen 2 Perea bills already today, and this is the
Uh-huh.
third one.
So this is item
You
number...
liked both of them.
I did, and so I'm finished.
Oh, no.
This is item number 5, costs, AB 21.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. AB 21 is a measure that would direct the California Air Resources Board when developing its scoping plan to include matters related to energy efficiency and electrification of the transportation sector in addition to what is already required under current law. In addition, this bill would state the intent of the legislature is that the ARB design emission reduction measures to clean the environment in ways that are cost-effective for California residents. In order to meet existing statewide goals such as doubling efficiency in existing buildings and deploying 1.5 million electric vehicles on California roads by 2025, these additional elements to the scoping plan need to be included and thoroughly assessed to ensure we understand the remaining challenges to meet these goals. The advanced deployment of electric vehicles and significant increases in building efficiency requires a coordinated approach between state agencies and the legislature, and the scoping plan has proven to be a useful tool to guide sound policy decisions. AB 21 will ensure we continue our leadership on climate change and keep us on the path to success achieving long-term goals. Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Okay, well, thank you. It's certainly legislation has been skinnied up since its original intent. Let's hear support for AB 21.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Michael Shaw with the California Manufacturers and Technology Association. We agree with your statement. Things have been skinnied up a little bit, but I think the important statement that AB 21 makes is that in order for California to truly be a global leader on the fight against climate change on a global scale, we need to make sure that our policies make sense and that they're functional and working together. AB 21 really lays the groundwork for that. It helps ensure that the economic impacts are properly considered, that we're looking at coordination amongst the electrification of the transportation sector and other implications that follow through from our climate change policy, both in AB 32, in addition to what comes next in post-2020, as we consider those very issues in this legislature as well. So CMTA supports AB 21 in the effort to help coordinate and bring those things together, and we ask for your aye vote on AB 21.
Other support for AB 21 by Assemblymember Perea, please come forward.
Morning, Amy Mago on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce and Support.
All right, let's turn to opposition. Opposition to AB 21? Seeing none, let's bring it back to the committee. Members? Senator Leno.
Assemblyman, welcome. I think, as Mr. Shaw pointed out, to have some coordination and bringing voices together is all well and good. Nothing to criticize or consider otherwise. But could you share with us, as the bill's going forward, what is that the full intent of the bill, or is there something else you really want to get at? Because,
Sure.
as was mentioned, it's been modified since first introduction, and so it could look almost like a substantive spot bill at this point. And just wondering, what's the real intent here?
And the supporters are all people that don't like AB 32, so I just,
Sure.
that's a legitimate question.
Well, and let me provide a response. Look, I get that my position and others like me that are more moderate in the Democratic Party are not always in alignment with others within the caucus. And I get that based on the district that I represent and that others like me represent, we provide a unique and a different perspective that sometimes is heard and sometimes isn't. So I appreciate the question because I know that over the past few years, I've taken positions that have not always gelled with other members within the party. Having said that, when we look at this particular issue, what we're trying to get at is to begin, even if it's at a very small way, to address issues like cost effectiveness and to have our agencies at least take a more thorough look as to what do these policies mean? How do they impact real people? And how does it impact, for example, somebody who lives in a wealthier community versus someone who lives in a community like mine? Senator Pavley, you mentioned that you heard two of my bills in a previous committee, and I've just take it back to just a little bit to an hour or so ago, in that I was presenting a bill for a community that is 4,100 people, all farm workers. I mean, these are individuals who make about $17,000 a year. And so as we talk about these broad subject matters and talk about some of these aspirational large goals, I think it's important that we ensure that everybody has the opportunity to participate. And if they are participating, what does that mean in terms of cost? What does that mean for a community like the example I gave, the city of San Joaquin? 4,100 people is completely isolated from everybody else in Fresno County. I mean, they don't have a lot of city services. They don't have county offices. There are no state offices or federal help. They're on their own. So AB 21, as the chairman correctly described, has been skinnied up. Certainly we wanted to do a little bit more at the time, but it still sort of keeps the very basic tenet, and that is, can we have a more thorough conversation about the cost, what do these things cost? What do these policies cost? And is there a more cost-effective way for us to achieve these aspirational goals that we set as a state?
Fair enough. And I just want to assure you, Assemblyman, I would have asked that question no matter who the author was.
I don't
Truly. So what we're looking at today is what you're looking at in moving forward
Yes.
to the governor's desk.
Yes.
Great to know. Thank you. And I move the bill.
There's a motion. Senator Jackson.
Yes, I noted that I'm a little confused as to where the bill stands at the moment. There is a letter from Carter, Wetch and Associates, who tend to represent some of the.
I think it's been withdrawn.
They opposed the previous version.
But and what confused me is that the letter's dated June 12th.
It's withdrawn. It's been withdrawn. Yeah, it's been withdrawn.
Didn't get that memo, but I did get the dress memo earlier for wearing scarves today. So, okay, well, I appreciate that. It clarifies.
Sure.
I was trying to figure out what the bill did now that was an issue.
That was I should have probably said something at the beginning.
No, I appreciate that. And, I just want to say, and I agree that we have to consider all aspects of issues as we go forward. I kind of feel, though, that given the nature of this House and all, that the economic impacts are always heard. Some of our colleagues in the third House make sure that we are well aware of their concerns, and I appreciate that in legislation. I just, you made a comment about how these things impact real people, and I think we all represent real people. So I just wanted to assure you that that the concerns that you experience on behalf of your constituents are factored in as we consider our constituents, who are also real people. So I am going to support the bill in its current form, but just want to assure you, there are many of us who do think that this is one state. And granted, the challenges in different parts of the state are different, but I think that, we all share that common goal.
Sure.
So I appreciate your bringing this bill at this point, but also hope to assure you that the economic considerations are indeed, or should always be, part of the discussion. So thank you.
You have a motion. We have another question by Ms. Senator Pavley.
Just a question. I know the word cost effectives in AB 32 in multiple places, and the car bill in multiple places. In fact, the clean car law, which is a concern in the Central Valley because the co-benefits of reducing criteria air pollutants, and I'm very sensitive to the asthma rates for San Joaquin and everyone else in the valley. So, what is your definition of cost effective?
Well, when I think about cost effectiveness, I think that and to another point that Senator Jackson made, and that yes, we are one state, but we all have different regional needs. It's almost like when we talked about when we had the water debate last year on the water bond. That was very much a bill driven by regional needs. And so when I think about the future in climate change and addressing issues like alternative energy, renewable energy, and alternative fuels, the question I think one question we have to consider is, what does it mean for different regions? And every region has a different need, and every region can absorb costs differently. And so I think if we can take a look at that and understand that the economy, for example, of the Central Valley can be very different from the economy of other parts of the state, and what might work for us may not work for somebody else. So when I think about the term cost effectiveness, I think about our state agencies doing a thorough analysis of looking to meet the broader objectives in a way that allows for each region to continue to compete, to allow for their constituents and their residents, essentially to afford the policies that are taking place. You know, I'll give you an example. I think, and we've had many conversations on this, I think a real natural fit for the Central Valley is the use of natural gas. I think that is something that, while certainly is not is not an EV, is not that technology, is certainly good and solid technology that could help reduce emissions in a place like the Central Valley, where you have major trade goods corridors down the I-5 and the 99, which have a huge impact on the air quality of our region. So when I think of cost effectiveness, I think that there are opportunities for us to look at needs based on our regions and what we can afford and what makes sense for our economy, so that everybody can participate in a cleaner economy.
And the operative word is the cleaner economy and the balance on the cost effective, because that's a healthier economy. Because if it's only about the cost, there's also a cost of not doing anything. But what if coal was 10 times cheaper than natural gas? You wouldn't want that as a trade-off.
Well, I said on the
Central Valley. But
I said on
if
the
cost is the factor, why not? You know, does that trump?
Sure.
So it is a balancing act.
Oh, absolutely it is.
Sometimes upfront short-term costs save money down the road for these same people that we all care about. And so you have to be careful on just defining cost effectiveness. There's a cost, healthcare costs, there's a lot of costs if
Sure.
we don't do things right, and we have to make sure they're implemented. Your bill really doesn't talk about, or that I've read, the separate geographic areas, but I'm
Right.
sensitive to that. But I get in this debate with people that cost just means upfront dollar cost today with no balancing on the real costs to society, long-term and short-term. So.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add to?
No, just I'll close by just concurring with Senator Pavley in that I sat on the Air Board, San Joaquin Valley Air Board, for 4 years, so certainly understand the health needs that are occurring where I'm raising my kids. Certainly want my kids to breathe cleaner air than I have in my generation. At the same time, I want to make sure that we preserve and enhance economic opportunities for them as well. And I think that there's an opportunity here for us to have a win-win in both addressing issues like GHG reduction, but also doing it in a way that allows for job growth, that allows for all regions within our respective districts to prosper. And so AB 21, I think, is a very modest proposal that certainly allows us to at least have a little bit more of a thorough analysis about what cost effectiveness is, what does it mean, and what does it look like regionally. And so I would just respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Very good. And just this committee has conducted 2 oversight hearings on climate adaptation. We're planning a 3rd and a 4th, and one of them will be out in the Central Valley to look at those effects on climate change, particularly with in your area. So
would love to host you.
Yeah, there is a motion. Please call the roll. Yeah.
Item 5, AB 21 by Assemblymember Perea. The motion is due pass to Committee on Appropriations. Senators Wykowski?
Aye.
Wykowski, aye. Gaines? Bates? Bates, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Jackson? Jackson, aye. Leno? Leno, aye. Pavley? Pavley, aye.
That matters approved. We'll keep the roll open for
you.
final vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Next up is going to be Assemblymember Garcia with item number 7, AB 434. I forgot to announce that item 8, AB 450 with Assemblymember McCarthy has been pulled at the author's request, so we'll address that. I have to go to I have a conflict right now, so I'm going to give the gavel, move the gavel to my extreme right and give it to Senator Pavley to conduct this hearing.
All right.